over to Carol and let her get started. Carol's out of our Orem office. She does most of our workshops and she's awesome. So if you have any questions for her, even after this, you can email her or reach out to me and I can give you her email if you can't find it. So just know that you have that option. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol and let her get started.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah. So you can chat and I'll be checking the chat too. And you can, if some questions come up, then we can have a little bit of a comment. And I'll leave time at the end to go through this. This is a little bit of material, of course, quite a bit of material. So, and like Heather says, I'm out of Orem. I'm a clinical mental health counselor. I'm a CFLE. I have several other certifications, and I'm super excited because I did this time on this Tuesday because last week I got trained in a certification for exposure therapy, CBT, anxiety in general, phobias, and panic disorder. So I will be getting a certification on that, another one. So I've added a few things from that in here, of course, and there's so much material in that training. So the reason why I wanted to do this one on anxiety is because at Blomquist Health, we do a 5-week program on anxiety. And anxiety, we call anxiety a lot of things. There's an umbrella of anxiety disorders, right? And then there's just general anxieties that we have in life. And so how to get through those, how to improve those. It's a 5-week program. So I thought I'm going to kind of do a 5-week webinar on how you can do this, learn a little bit about that program. And if you do want to join it, it starts again in January. It's ongoing. So when you see the workshops pop up on our website, you can just, anyone can join as an adult, 18 and up. And so that gives you the full 5 weeks. They're usually Mondays at 5:30, an hour and a half-ish time. So we're going to go through each week like that. So this is a condensed version of that. So if you're in the program, if you've taken the program, this is just good to do a review on too, for sure. And then in December, part 2 of this is going to be about how to prevent relapse. Okay, so see, maybe we got rid of a phobia, and how in the world do you prevent relapse of going back into that fear? A little bit of that kind of stuff. So we're gonna how to maintain your anxiety after for long term. So that's going to be in December. So you might want to look for that one and sign up for that one. So let's get started here. I love Charlie Brown. He's got anxiety about his anxiety. True panic disorder is having panic about having another panic. So like meaning, oh, I don't want to go to the grocery store because the last time I had a panic attack there, so I'm just not going to go to the grocery store. So we're going to fear the panic before the panic, right? So it's definitely a juggling act, right? So the 5-week review is like, okay, first we've got to educate ourselves. We've got to understand what panic, what anxiety is, or vice versa, or a whole bunch of other things. But you have to know what your SUDs, and we're going to go over that. But really, where's your fight, flight, or freeze? Where is it? Like what your FFF are. So it's like, where's your fight, flight, or freeze? It's not necessarily what your triggers are. It's really just what is happening in the brain with your fight, flight, or freeze. We will go over safety behaviors. If there's anybody that wants to chat right now, if you know what a safety behavior is and what you do, we'll get that spinning already. You have to have intelligence in your emotional state. We have to label it, because if you don't have emotional intelligence, you don't know how to label it, you don't know how to track it, and you don't know how to practice it. So we really have to, and I've got a couple handouts at the end of this workshop that kind of gives you a good emotional cycle on how to label it, track it, and practice it. But that's a little bit of that. If you don't know what SUDs are, what your safety behaviors are. You don't really do well with emotional intelligence, then you got some work to do. But that's the whole point. It's super, super easy to go through each week. If you focus on what the goal here is take a week from each one of these PowerPoints and work on that thing for that week even, and just learn, get it down. You're not really practicing it. You're not changing the neural pathways yet, but each week, right? So 1 week is education. You're going to educate yourself. Then week 2 is tools. You're going to practice those tools. Week 3, mindfulness. How are we going to be mindful this week? Week 4, thinking errors. We're going to get rid of some of those thinking errors. We're going to understand it. And then we're going to get rid of those thinking error stories, negative cognitions and ants, which is your automatic negative thoughts. Week 5 is exposure. Okay. So we're going to go through it. Let's get to it right now. And okay. So for a quick second, hopefully you have a notebook, because if you know me, I go fast, I talk fast, I go through these. We've got 30 plus slides. We've got lots of stuff. And that's why you're going to get this PowerPoint later. So don't worry about like taking a whole bunch of notes, but I want you to right now go 1 through 7, 0 being it doesn't happen, 2 being, more than half the days out of the week, it happens. And 3 is nearly every day, most of the day. So add most of the day, nearly every day. And if it is on that day, it is most of the day. I feel nervous. I can't stop worrying. I worry too much about different things. I have trouble relaxing, being restless. I'm super irritable. We're kind of irritable. We've got an irritable world going on right now. Feeling afraid. So just put down a number for 1 through 7. And you can add up those and just see where you're at, because I want you to use this in 5 weeks and redo it. Don't look at your old numbers. In 5 weeks, if you really take the next 5 weeks, it's a perfect time during the holidays to focus on something else besides worry, right? But you're going to focus on worry, but you're not, right? You're going to focus on relaxing, you're going to focus on tools, you're going to focus on mindfulness, you're going to focus on your negative thoughts. So it's pretty simple to really just revamp. It's just certain times of the day. We're going to set an alarm and you're going to go, okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes of mindfulness. I mean, these little kind of tiny things that resets the brain. So if you take this little quiz again in 5 weeks, just see where your numbers are. Just see where your numbers are and compare. So first of all, we have to understand what worry is and what anxiety is. Now, here's anxiety. I didn't say generalized anxiety disorder, okay? It's not a diagnosis, it's just anxiety, because an anxiety, once again, an umbrella of anxiety, there's a huge umbrella, right? But the key here is if it goes into a diagnosis, it's daily impairment in all areas of your life severely, okay? So let's just call it worry or anxiety. So worry, normal, keeps us alive. Anxiety keeps us alive. We don't want to get rid of this. We're never, ever, ever going to get rid of anxiety. We're not even going to get rid of worry, but move to the anxiety list here. So worry is normal. Mild distress, it's you have a given situation and you can find a solution to it. It's somewhat controllable. So that's key, right? Okay. So anxiety, severe emotional distress, it stays, it lingers, it's in your physiological body. So when it's in here and you have a physiological response, which happens a lot, that's the key. You have to look at that, right? And say, okay, where is it being held in my body? What shows up from breathing, heart rate, sweating, people's head hurts, their neck, shoulder, whatever. So we're going to keep track of that a little bit. You have less problem solving because now we've, and I'll explain this with the SUDs, where we're at in the brain, okay? So we have less problem solving if we're past the frontal lobes. It's not controllable. We have blocking. So we block things. We can't see the whole picture. So we're going to deny the logical part, and we're going to only be in our emotional brains. In this training I did last week, 2/3 of the brain too, we have to remember, are completely reactive. Okay, so just go with that. Logical brain, left side, is very slow. That's why math is hard. It's like, okay, let me get that right. Emotional brain, which we stay in 2/3 of the time, which is reactive, which is that keeps us alive, is just there. So we have to get into wise mind, and we have to use both, but it's going to take us a minute to get more logical. But if we're in severe anxiety, more back of the brain, or clear in the back of the brain, then we're not going to have the ability to solve problems. We're going to have functioning is impaired. Okay, we're going to go through all this, and we're going to ruminate. Now this is a little icebreaker right now. Think about ribs. I don't call ruminating, I call them marinating. So when you marinate your thoughts and you marinate the story, think about some ribs. We're coming up on Thanksgiving. I love to eat and cook. So we're not having ribs, but I make a stuffed ham. So you can think of my stuffed ham. If you marinate something and you're soaking it, marinate, and it's like, okay, is it going to be any better after 48 hours? Is it really going to be any more, any more flavor? No, just no, it's not. So it's like, why do we keep marinating something instead of just eating it and cooking it and getting rid of it and enjoying it? Okay, so think about the safety behaviors that you do that you don't enjoy. You don't have enjoyment because you keep thinking, you keep blocking, you keep ruminating about the same thing over and over and over again. So we stop marinating, just cook them. So that's my analogy about ribs. Okay, so this is just a little visual. So back to the physiological response, okay? So there is a total difference between anxiety and stress and panic, okay? We're not going to go into it as much, but this is the similarity in the middle. It's always a physiological response. There's always the similarities, even in depression, there's some similarities, right? But this is like, okay, I'm going to have muscle tension, right? You're going to have breathing problems and concentration. You're going to hyperventilate. And so all I'm going to say about this is panic does not have an activator, doesn't have a trigger. An activator meaning it activates your body. Anxiety or stress is the worry about the future. It definitely has something that you are looking forward to that's scary, okay? Panic, you could just be asleep. That's more PTSD, that's your nightmares, that's sitting at dinner in a movie and you're just totally calm and fine, nothing's going on, and your body has a reaction, okay? So we treat them similar, but you have to know the difference. A lot of people don't know the difference between those. And so the first time a kiddo comes into me or an adult and I say, okay, what's going on when you have an attack? And then we can pinpoint it. Now, the other one that's not even on here that I find most of the time is the feeling of being trapped. That is a true agoraphobia. Being trapped in something. It's not necessarily social anxiety, it's being trapped. So it's not panic and it's not anxiety, it's being trapped. That's another subject altogether, those. So we just have to know what fight, flight, or freeze is, right? It's a domino effect of chemicals that keeps us alive, that actually is really, really good. But if we're staying in it, okay? So this is frontal lobes, this is where we reason, we can work through some logic, we can work through what's going on, and then, after 10 minutes, you're not, exploding, and you're still here, mostly in the frontal lobes, and you can still self-talk. When you get to fight, flight, or freeze, just know that you're all the way back here in the back of the brain, and that's where we hold our post-trauma, right? So it's like, this is what the brain says. This is what happened before. So this is what's going to happen now. And there's a way to get out of that and to reprogram the brain. We know that now. We can change that. But my 10 minutes is bolded on here because I teach tons of 10-minute interactions with self and body, and that's all you need. And I'm going to go over those tools, right? Really quickly, because you just need 10 minutes. Scientifically, you need 3 minutes to change the nervous system, but up to 10 minutes. And so meaning it's going to change it for the better or worse, right? It's going to go high or low in your suds. So it's going to go, okay, your 5-flutter freeze is intentionally going to mostly last only 10 minutes because that's what we're programmed to do. It's like by 10 minutes, you can say, okay, I don't need to run anymore. I'm running from the bear. The bear's gone. If you are still running after 10 minutes, that bear is pretty a long time. So the biggest thing that I wrote down and that I've used since that last training was the more we fear something, the more we find it. So think about right now. Think about not looking for a white car, a white SUV or a minivan. Utah has a lot of white SUVs and minivans. So think about not finding a white car when you go to a parking lot next time. You go to the store because you're all going to probably go. I hope I don't have to go to the store again ever before Thanksgiving, right? So I want you to go to Thanksgiving grocery store and not look for a white car and tell me you won't find one. So think about that. Was just my own made up analogy, right? The more we fear it, the more we'll find it. The more we think about it and process and ruminate, which is you're marinating it on something, right? You're going to find that and you're going to go into your fight, flight, or freeze. Boom, boom, boom. So much more often. So what fuels the anxiety? Safety behaviors. That's all you need to know. Not doing something that is scary. Yes. Every time I, bought a new car or something, right? It's like, oh, yes. And then you see your car where the same color, the top. I'm like, oh, my car is hotter than your car, yeah. And it's like, it's crazy how that happens. So fire fuels the anxiety, which is your safety behavior. So safety behavior sounds really good, right? They keep us safe. No, they don't. So we want to expose those safety behaviors and start doing them. So we're going to talk about that, how to start, adding them into our lives instead of avoiding them. And if you get kicked out of this, we're going to let you back in. Sometimes, you get kicked out and then you have to jump back in. So get some more people in. Okay. So now we know what 5-flutter freeze is, right? We've all heard of that. Hopefully by now. Safety behaviors, fear. 5-flutter freeze, safety behaviors. So we just go into this huge cycle. So just know that's a really fast explanation of safety behaviors and what causes the fire to keep burning and fuel. Okay, so I've talked about suds. So now we're going to talk about suds. It's one of my favorite things, CBT, DBT, but really it's my favorite thing because it's easy. It gets us logical. Think about numbers. What side is the logical number brain, right? Logical side. And so every time we can put a number on it, it's very simple to keep track. And I use 0 to 10 for everything. I use 0 to 10 in EMDR. That's how EMDR works. We want a disturbance of a 10 from that trauma, and then we focus on that trauma and do EMDR trauma work on that. So it's like, oh, severe is 8, 9, or 10. Okay. So you rate your trauma, you rate your emotion, you rate your fears. How much fear do you have? Well, it's an 8. Snakes, I say the word snake, and then people will cringe and all of a sudden have a physical response just to the word, right? And those are phobias, right? Or flying. I can't fly, don't even say the word. So I got trained by this last week, the lady that was like, she severely 30-year, both of them were 30-year clinicians of treating and doing exposure therapy for phobias and panic disorder for sure. OCD, lots of OCD, right? So same thing, they all are intertwined, all of them. So OCD, ruminate, right? Obsessively, and then you compulse. So you compulse on that, which is a safety behavior. I don't do, if I'm ruminating about, oh, I'm going to do something, or a safety behavior, lock the door, lock the door. I'm not saying you don't lock your doors, but it's a safety behavior that keeps our brain from saying, you're going to make it. I have a private client that I was like, okay, our safety behaviors, you're going to take your pepper spray out of your car and you're going to drive to work. That's one example. Hyperventilating on purpose, that's an exposure. We're going to get that into week 5 here in a minute. But you have to know what your levels are so you know what that looks like. You always have to rate it so you just know where you're going, where you come from, where you want to be, and watching yourself go back to a 3. So does everyone get that so far? 7, 8, 9, 10 is back here. You are not self-talking. You've lost it, and that's okay. You're here. We just have to bring you back to midbrain, which is 7, 6, 5, 4. And this is where we're like completely in self-talk, we're reasoning, processing, organizing our thoughts, our reward systems up, all these things where we want to be, where we don't have stress. And you can get there. You have to just bring yourself back into that. But if you know what number you're at, and a kid can tell me I was at a 5 and I was taking a test and I got to a 7, and then I did some things and I did some forced core breathing and I did that. And then I told myself my mantra of, which is my positive cognition. It's not a mantra. I do positive cognitions, like I am capable. And he's like, I stopped for 30 seconds and did all that. And I aced my math test, and I've never done that before in my life. He was 10, really smart kid. So, okay. Totally went from in 30 seconds, and he could see himself go back to a number, to a 3, which is manageable. So then he could finish his test. So we're born with anxiety. Does that mean it's genetic? That was a question. I'm going to tell you right now, there is absolutely no genetic gene to anxiety. You're going to have a hard time with that word, genetic, because it's been ingrained in us that it's a gene and it's genetic, and it's not. It's our environment. Our genes are activated by inflammation, cold, autoimmune, cancer, diabetes. Those genes are activated by inflammation. So just remember that they've been with us. They're here to keep us alive, but they don't have to be super uncomfortable, okay? They just have to keep us alive, and we celebrate that, but we don't need to stay in it and be uncomfortable that we're going to die in those storms, right, that come. And I've highlighted 2 books in the back of that, in the back of this PowerPoint, by the way, about, is it genetic, or is it the body keeps the score, or is it lost connections? Those 2 books, and I have them bolded, so we'll talk about that. So, okay, now we're here for some tools, okay? So this is just an example. I'm not going to go over it. I'm just going to leave it right here. If we were together, or if this was a longer in the program, I have, you write it on a 3x5 card and put in your car. And so you can help yourself self-talk, like, okay, what do I do when I'm at a 4, 5, 6? Oh, wait, stop. Okay, wait, take a break. Take a step back and literally step back, move, observe what's around you, and then be mindful, get present, right? What are you focusing on? What are your goals? What's today instead of future, right? And then practice. So that's just something you write on a card. Okay, which one can I do? Oh, wait, I'm going to do all of them. Stop. STOPP. And that's just I have these cards that I make and I hand them to people. They can put them in their cars when they're road raging. It's like, wait, stay focused, stay factual, you know, just to remind you. Okay, the next one is tip. So we use temperature, intense aerobic exercise, paced breathing, and paired muscle relaxation to change your SUDS. This can change your SUDS immediately, okay? Promise. So if you're at a 5 and you're like, oh, I don't want to have a panic attack, and you start panicking about panicking, you have to stop, because you're still self-talking at that point. You're like, oh, I don't want to panic because of panic. You're still self-talking. So that means that you can switch it to one of these and just pick one of them. Cold is awesome. Ice cubes in the hands, on the neck, get a bag of frozen peas and put them somewhere around you. You know, an ice cold drink. I literally have people go back and forth with ice cubes in their hands. If someone can help you when after or before, you're between 7 and 10, no. Before a 7 and after a 10, and you're coming back to a 7. So this is when we're doing stuff 7 and under, or 0 to 7. You get it? Everybody following me so far? Do I need to take a breather? So these are things that are going to help prevent, but also bring you back to a 5. So it's like, okay, so if someone can go get you some ice cubes or a cold bag of peas to put, you know, on your neck or on the back of your head, after you've had a panic or an anxiety stressor, then sure, it's going to help you go back to a 5, and then you're going to self-talk and you're going to go back here. I almost always, if you want to send endorphins, it's scientific. Huberman Labs that I listen to, he's a neuroscientist. If you want to look it up, he's great podcast. He talked about this in one of his episodes about using hot and cold, about everything about the body. And so have a hot shower, take a few seconds and make it cold at the end. It actually resets your body. It's good for endorphin, dopamine, all kinds of things. So it's good for circulation. So, but it just, you know, send you off for the day. The next thing is intense aerobic exercise. So it's not just, I'm going to do some exercise. This is for these reasons. You're anxious, you're angry, you're ruminating, right? You're marinating those thoughts. You want to bring up your mood. You want to have a better communication, a crucial conversation before the meeting. Go do 5 minutes to 10 minutes of an intense exercise, which is, you know, jumping jacks. If you want to problem solve better, do that. Literally minutes, literally 3 to 8, 10 minutes. It's going to do a state change. And I keep on saying that. If you don't understand what a state change is, it's a state change. It's changing your SUD. It's changing your neurological system, your nervous system. We want to activate the vagus nerve, calm the stress symptoms, right? So we're at paced breathing now. So this is just 4 square breathing. You go up 4, hold 4, let it out 4, wait 4, do it 4 times. So this is just a page for you to go, okay, if I just do some breathing, what does that look like? How do I do it? It's just steady. It's not rocket science breathing. That's not. It's just counting 1, 2, 3, 4 and hold 4 and then do it, you know, let it out 4, wait 4, do it 4 times. The other cycle of 6 breaths per minute, that just helps you get focused if you do this paced up here, but 4 square breathing is just easy, super easy for kids, super easy to everybody to do. So paired muscle, okay? All you need to know with this one is you're pairing up muscles. I would rather have you do bilateral. So if you're going to squeeze a stress ball, then you're going to do it back and forth and back and forth. You're going to pair up this muscle and then pair up this muscle, squeeze and let go. And so do both sides of your body like that. And and see if you could just really focus on this. And the whole point is just tensing up that muscle group. So you're going to tense up one foot and then the other, and one leg and then the other, right? And go back and forth. That's even better than doing them together. Okay. Okay, so that was just some tools, some really, really, really fast tools. Okay. So mindfulness, week 3. So week 1, let's review. Just educating yourself about anxiety and what that looks like for you. Week 2, tools. Week 3, you're just going to do some tools. For week 2, you're going to start doing something every day. By the way, you want to do those at least 3 times a day when you're not anxious. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to stop, get up, do stop. Or I'm going to do tips. I'm going to do something. I'm going to do intense muscle pairing. So week 3 is mindfulness. If you haven't heard of mindfulness, don't know what it is, you're going to have to kind of do some of your own studying, because I'm not going to go over all that, of course. There is one workshop that's already on YouTube called Getting Through Depression with Mindfully. And I of course did that. It's from a book from John Kabat-Zinn that has really put mindfulness in the limelight the last 40 years. And by the way, if anyone hasn't ever been to our YouTube channel, on our Blomquist Hale YouTube channel, not the website, our YouTube channel, you're going to find lots of workshops, anxiety tools for young and old I did, and it goes over all those past tools, a whole hour of them. So it explains them a little bit more. So if you really want some more tools, you can watch that. Okay. So here's mindful or mindful. What are you? It like has a little kiddo here, and it's like, oh yeah, they have nothing to worry about. I promise you, they're having a lot more to worry about than they've ever had to worry about stuff now. We've got, under, 3rd graders sitting at 60% qualify for a generalized anxiety disorder in 3rd grade. 60% of kids. We've got an epidemic. Besides bullying, those are the 2 things. Bullying and anxiety. Focus, right? And it's not ADHD, it's focus, because we have so much in our mind that we are not present. Okay. So the thought process is this. Back to the frontal lobes. I've talked about 100 times already, right? You self-talk, you have physical reactions, you have a reward system, you reason. So this is where mindfulness happens. So if we're not here, we're not in the present at all. We're just not. So we got to take us back to here, because if we don't, we have a physiological reaction, we have a feeling reaction, and then our behavior is what? Shut down, panic, punch the wall, whatever, road rage, whatever's going to go on. Hopefully a better behavior. This is CBT, right? It's like we have a thought, we have a feeling, oh, we have behavior, we have thought, feeling, behavior, and it keeps going. So it's when we want to break that up a little bit and go, oh, right here, what am I feeling? So you have a break right here in between those, and you're like, okay, what is my physical reaction? What is my physiological reaction? What is my feeling reaction? What's going on a little bit, not why. And in that training, they were right with me on stuff. They were like, don't do the whys. The minute you say, what if? They said that multiple times. You are now into your little worry bully. Every time you say, what if? And I have clients say it to me all the time, like, well, I go through the what ifs and what if this? And they don't even realize they're saying it. Should and what ifs. Those are the 2 words. So we just eliminate. What if this happens? I don't know if this will happen. What if, what if, what if? So that's your worry bully coming out and completely hijacking your brain. So you just put that little worry bully away and go, wait, here's my worry bully. And I'm going to replace it with Confident Sally. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but we're going to recognize it. And then we're going to put it away, and we're going to say, okay, I'm worrying about that. Yes, it's legit. But do I have to have this feeling and behavior because of it, like isolation because of that? And so we got to reason, we got to organize, and then we got to have a reward system. We really do. So this is, again, just a little bit more on wise mind. What we feel is one thing, what we think is the same. And when we get into that real place where we're really mindful, wisdom comes in, right, left brain comes in, emotions come in, we can make decisions, but we're right in the middle. And sometimes we have to go back and forth a little bit, right? And come back and forth with that self-talk. And we have to pull someone else in that's a lot more logical than we're, remember, our urges, our mood, our emotional focus. Someone else is out here, right? So as a therapist, I can do that all day long. Because here's the emotional 2/3 of the brain that people are sitting in all the time. And that's not PT, that's not, it's just we're a lot more reactive. And then I have to bring in the reasonable mind, right? And I'm really good at bringing in that logical, like, is that true? Think about the thinking errors here that you're giving me, the what ifs or the shoulds. So then we kind of bunk what is going on. Just a little bit more on the wise mind model, if you want to look at that. Identify each state of mind. This will teach you to find the focus of where you want to manage it. So this is how you do it a little bit with that, with no judgment. Mindfulness is just being in the moment without judging, right? Shoulds. I should have done that. Well, what if this would happen? Well, what if someone says something? What if someone looks at me weird? What if I go to this party and no one talks to me? So that's the what: observe, describe, participate. Okay, what? But this is how. I'm going to be non-judgmental. I'm going to be one mind, and it's going to be effective. So those are just a little bit of how you can put those together to get into wise mind. This is just another tool with mindfulness. Okay. I think in a little bit, I have at the end, I have three or four apps that will help you with this too. But with mindfulness, on the next slide, some other apps. But it's really nice to have recommended using a recording of a soothing voice giving step-by-step instructions. It's super easy to be present when you have a mountain meditation going on. And I love the guy that just, gives that to me, right? It's awesome. So just some more ways to be mindful is here. This is a huge loaded slide. I have this in like 4 or 5, probably 6 webinars that I constantly add as a coping mechanism, right? Sympathetic, we want to calm the automatic sympathetic nervous system. 4 square breathing, we already went over, tracing, recording, focus point. I won't take time to teach you that. You can find that in other workshops. You can have a worry bag, call someone, do a room scan. And those little free mindfulness.org, you can download those guides. But remember, 2-minute to 10-minute, 3-minute, 2 to 10-minute distraction is all you need to do something to mess up your, to get into your digest and rest nervous system. Okay, week 4. We got 15 minutes, barely. So week 4, all I'm going to say right now, if you want to write this down, anybody have any comments, keep going with the chat. We'll keep checking them. Check in here for a minute. My favorite thing ever is learning about and teaching about cognitive distortions and thinking errors. Okay, so I would say that I've taught thinking errors just hundreds and hundreds of times to hundreds of people, hundreds and hundreds, because I taught that class for the court system for years. And so I love teaching thinking errors, how that turns into defense mechanisms. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now, if you want more on this week 4, thinking errors, automatic negative thoughts, watch my thinking errors part 1 on YouTube. that's under Blomquist-Dale, and part 2. So that's probably the most popular workshop on there. It's a huge component to anxiety, because think about your thinking errors. If you don't know what thinking errors are, then you really need to study what thinking errors are. So this is how you do some of it. If you want to find out what your automatic negative thoughts are, you sit down, write the thoughts that come when you feel anxious. Sit quietly and try to imagine going into an anxiety-provoking situation. Now, don't go into the like a 10, like your scariest thing that freaks you out the most. I don't want to activate you by thinking about your thing. That's exposure therapy, by the way. So, but really think about something that produces a physiological response for you, and then see what your automatic negative thoughts are, and see what your thinking errors are that come up. Or you could role play an anxiety producing event with a friend or family member or therapist. Write down during the exercises what happens. I do this all the time with people. Like, tell me, what's your scariest thing then? What happened? And then we go through it and like, I noticed that you were this, this, and this. And how did that feel for you? Well, they start shaking, they cry, your body responds. So we bring that up and we think, okay, what is your negative cognition, which is self, past thinking errors? Well, everyone will hate me. That's a thinking error. It's actually about all 10 thinking errors. Everyone will hate me. So they don't do it. But your negative cognition is, I'm not important. So it goes into this negative cognition of soul. It goes into your body. You now have a story about self, not just that everyone hates me if I did this weird thing. It's I am not worth it, or I am misunderstood. So do you see how, and those negative cognitions go deep, and we want to release those before they go deeper. Thinking errors are not facts. So this is how you also decide if it's a thinking error. You go, is this true? Everyone's going to hate me. Huh. And then how does that make me feel? Well, pretty crappy. Because yeah, everyone in the class is going to hate me. And then I won't have any friends. And then, right, and then it goes big, right? And then it overgeneralizes to everything. And then I'm not going to go to college because I will be a dropout. And then what if I didn't hold this belief? That's the biggest one. It's like, what would that mean to me if I didn't hold this belief? So these are still self-talks, right? We're still self-talking these questions. If we're asking those questions, we're going, is this a thinking error, or am I delusional? And so, but I always have to point out the reasons why we don't self-talk. Again, number one, you are clear back here. Okay, I've said it. I say it 100,000 times. Number two, you're in burnout. You are so tired and unfocused and burned out. Now, if you're burned out as an adult, in your job, in your family, in your marriage, in your parenting, please reach out, because that is treatable. And so is impaired, and so is mental disorders. This is the thing about anxiety. It is 110% treatable and 100% curable. We have that. We have that data. We have that possibility with CBT and EMDR. I do all three of those, and IFS, which is internal family systems, which is a whole other session. So think about 5-letter phrase. You're not going to be self-talking. You're going to be in the back of the brain, clear back there. You're in just burnout. You're in chronic habitual burnout. You're impaired. That is any drug, any street, legal, benzo, any drug that impairs the frontal lobes. Okay. So that is impairment. Alcohol is impairment. 0.04, which is a couple beers for most of us, is impaired. Your brain actually starts to be impaired. That's the whole point. It blocks this part. a mental disorder that keeps you in the back of the brain, for example, PTSD or autism, put you back here. So are you going to be self-talking? You are not. So this is a list of the thinking errors. So take a look at these. I just want you to breathe for a minute with this. Which one you write down, which one you are awesome at, which one you do the most at, or do the best. You're the best, at X, Y, and Z. So actually, turn off that video. See if you can pick one out that you did today. Did you say should? Did you filter out? Remember, wise mind, this is why mindfulness is so important. Did you filter out the emotional and you were just logical, or did you filter out the logical and you were super emotional when you made decisions today, or when you had an interaction with a human? So it's really emotionally charged. Did you discount the positive? Did you overgeneralize? Were you a black and white thinker in I and always and never, and you always and never, and you never do this and you never do that to yourself or someone else? We do a lot of the personalization. That is taking on someone's problems when you have no control over it. It's not personal. We all take things personal. That is human. That's normal. But personalization is taking on someone's problems when you have no control over it. It's not your problem, but we take it on. We do a lot of that in parenting and in marriages. So just know what this looks like for you. Yes, a lot of people are very good at personalization. They don't understand that one. And that one's the big one that comes up in my sessions with clients a lot, of like, wow, sounds like you're doing personalization a lot. And so if you're going to go into personalization, you're going to be a rescuer, you're going to be a people pleaser, you're going to be passive, all those things. You're going to stonewall, and then you're going to go, I'm going to rescue. You're going to take on people's problems and rescue them and their problems. That gets exhausting. That will burn you out faster than just about anything. So jumping to conclusions, we're just really good at that. So just look at this list. Like I said, go back to the YouTube channel and watch the whole thing if you want. Ants are distorted. So remember how you go back to how do you find your automatic ant, or your thinking error? You just sit down and go, let me think about an anxiety provoking situation. What's my automatic ant that comes up for me? People will hate me. Okay. People make fun of me. People laugh at me. Whatever a kiddo is why they don't want to interact in a classroom or something. So it's like, okay, let's identify that, because once again, we have to identify some of these patterns, and then we know what to do with them. Is the point. So what if you didn't hold this belief? How likely is it going to happen? You can ask these questions. What, how bad would it be if people hated me? I'm just coming up, that just came off the top, that it's scenario. What if, I got made fun of and I got laughed at? I did a whole imagery with the kiddo that was like 10 or 12, like that, right? Of like, well, I think people are going to laugh at me when I do my presentation. At the end of the imagery, she was funny. She told a joke and she laughed with her class, and no one laughed at her. And she watched herself do that presentation. That's the power of imagery and exposure therapy. All you have to do is expose yourself to the thought of what you think is going to happen. And man, it's amazing how it changes to something like that. Super powerful for her. She was like, oh my gosh, I was funny. I was funny. They didn't laugh at me. They laughed with me. I told a joke and everyone was like, wow, you're so fun, from patting her on the back as they left the class. That was a 10-minute thing that she was freaked out about. If we all did that as parents or teachers, and we all said, you know what if they laughed with you instead of at you? What would that look like? What if you didn't hold this belief? So review here. This is a review. How to get to the questions to ask yourself. How bad would it be? Go through those questions. Okay. So I've talked about exposure. I kind of jumped ahead, right? Common safety behaviors, needing to have water, being with the safe person all the time, staying close to home. So driving, someone has to be with you in the car, or, I have to have a bag because, you're so scared of throwing up, distracting thoughts, avoiding eye contact, wearing sunglasses. Avoiding conflict is actually a phobia. It's a paranoia of what would happen. Carrying a cell phone, well, let's just change that to like carrying pepper spray everywhere you go. What would happen if you didn't? Everyone carries their cell phone. So that was just from my training. That was their list of some common safety behaviors that they find. So, okay, how do you do it? You practice it. That's all you're going to say to yourself. I got to practice it every day. You reduce the safety behaviors, right? Something that scares you. So you just try to do those little things each day. It's repetitive and it takes a while. You want to do that with a therapist. If it's an extensive phobia that you've had for a long time, and you've completely avoided it for many, many, many months or years, I want you to do that with a therapist and say, hey, I have something that is adding fuel to the fire and I want to be able to do it. It's ruining and, destroying my life, hijacking my whole life. I can't do this thing, this one thing. And you have to say, I want to get rid of this. Your therapist should know how to do that with that exposure therapy and CBT and stuff like that. So, but you got to be willing. You have to be willing and ready to do the work, right? And facing it. And the whole point is you're going to reprogram the brain. You're going to fire it and then you're going to wire it in a different way every single time you practice it. You're going to throw yourself right into it. This is just some slides now. So as we go into some questions, put some questions in the chat. These are just a little more of how to practice it. These are how to get started, and some handouts on emotional cycle. So back to here, just go through. This is how you get started. Does one stand out, right? Tip for me, start with one that's like just a smaller, so maybe a 3 out of 10 disturbance, and you start doing that one thing. But find stuff that interferes with your life the most too. Write them down. What interferes with your life the most? Emotional cycle handout here. You can go through those. You have, and it's very, this is like almost like week 1, week 2, week 3, 4, 5. Okay. This goes along with this. I made this years ago in my emotional, because I had so many people that, needed to see the steps of an emotional cycle. And lo and behold, it goes without 5 weeks, almost exactly. So, and if you want this handout, I can email it to you. It's also on my website. So that's why that's there. So you can go and print this off anytime you want. How to maintain is part 2. Like I said, we're going to do that in December. Let me go back. Oh, I said that in the last, this is what I'm going to go over. So these are some apps. Okay. I'm going to go over all of this. How do we keep doing resilient work and maintenance work and prevent relapse? It's the biggest thing. How do we prevent relapse? How do we keep the dopamine going, so we don't have a dopamine relapse, and we keep our everything going that way? So anything come in that we need to chat about? Or that was a lot.
I haven't had anything come through.
Cool. So it was just a lot, and it was fast. And it's like, okay, We got the basics down. And you can go further in whatever subject of these you want more information on. I pretty much have another workshop on it. On the, yeah.
Cool.
Good.